a baller. So should we be hearing ourselves pretty good? Cause I don't, right?
I don't hear you at all.
Testing, 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 testing. Test 1 2 1 2 1 2. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's a little louder. Test, test. Oh, there we go. Yeah, yeah. How many engineers does it take? Nah, it sounds good, man. Sounds real good.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan in the back, the man behind the screen.
Yes, sir.
Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. I'm real honored and proud to be sitting up here with my man C4.
Thank you, bro.
C4, for those that don't know, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name, everybody calls me C4. I'm an artist, engineer. I don't really consider myself a producer. I do a little bit of beat making though, pretty much just for me.
You can tell he raps too by the way he's talking.
Right. Started off as an artist first, you know what I mean? And I tried recording myself at a very, very, very young age, man. I think I was in middle school, like 5th grade, right? I had a laptop, built-in microphone. I had no idea what I was doing. I think it was like Acid Pro or something off of LimeWire. And, I was trying to record myself, and I would play the beats, that I was downloading, and it was just playing out of the laptop speakers. I was recording straight into the built-in microphone. It sounded terrible. It was just like a glorified voice memo, essentially. Years down the road, I got into, a bigger home studio with someone that, pretty much knew what they was doing, Bama, you know Bama. So, that's been my big brother and mentor for a long time with this music stuff. And I started diving deeper into the engineering. And, obviously I didn't really know what I was doing. I was a high school kid recording myself, the homies. And it got to a point where it's like, man, I want to sound like what's on the radio. So what do? I go to Barron Studios. And, Jason was probably one of the first people that I ever worked with, man. And I just want to say thank you, too, bro, because...
Thank you, man.
Because you were always an open book, bro. You know what I mean? If I ever had a question, if I ever wanted to learn something cool that I could take back to Brazoria County, like, you was always like, yeah, bro, like, here's this plugin. I remember one of the first things that you taught me that, changed the game for me. And it was like the littlest thing, but like, when I took it back to little old Brazoria County in the country, I was blowing people's mind. And it was just the air vintage filter, throwing that on a beat and automating it up. And to this day, I still do that trick, right? And I still blow people's minds, like, oh my God, like, you're a fucking genius and this and that, you know what I mean? So again, thank you for that. But yeah, so I was recording all my music with Jason and pretty much picking his brain, you know what I mean? Looking over his shoulder and shadowing him. And he was mentoring me before he probably knew he was mentoring me, to be honest. Like I said, he was just an open book. And everything I learned, I took back to my studio, and I was doing that for about 5 years. And I was getting better and better, so I was able to up my price. I was able to, get better studio equipment. And like I said, I was probably from 5 to 7 years, maybe a little less, whatever. I get a IG message from Jason, and he's like, yo, I got an intern spot for you, with a guaranteed job. We don't normally do this, but, this and that. So I'm like, hell yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that's a no-brainer for me. So did the internship, had the job, worked with y'all for years, and I got to learn from you, Dorothy, like everybody at Barron, bro, and Todd. Like, man, I learned so much on the acoustic aspects and like just really understanding that. And so that allowed me to build my studio to what it is, you know what I mean? And I had a question earlier from, I think it was homie right here. He was like, so I know you're an engineer, Jason's an engineer. Would you say that y'all have like different mixing styles? And I would like to say yes, but honestly, like, I feel a lot of moves that I make are like low-key influenced by stuff that I learned from you over the years, bro.
Now a lot of moves that I make are after listening to your albums, and I'm like, I need to get a vocal as smooth as yours.
I appreciate that, man.
The reason why I really want to talk to C4 too, though, is everybody in Houston, we don't have a couple generations of industry here. We've had great moments, but we don't have the same thing that LA has. We don't have the same thing that Atlanta has, or Toronto has, or New York has. They also have, they're entertainment cities. And we, as musicians, we think about music being its own bubble, but music is a piece of the entertainment industry, and that's movies, films, commercials, all of that. We don't have those industries here, but we always have great music. And everybody nationally always like is influenced by our music and does
Absolutely.
more with it than what we get to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody, every producer, every singer, every artist here is really like get it out the mud, and everybody like comes up from nothing and has to make something here, or move out to LA.
Right.
2 months later, you blow up hard. Get
Shout
one
out
song
Davis,
out.
man.
Yeah,
Davis
there
is
you
a
go.
goat, man. He's doing his thing, bro. Shout out to him for sure.
So anytime, you know, and when you're as old as I am, you get to see this a couple times, but watching someone start and then just like blow up is like the best feeling in the world, and it should be like really, it's really inspiring to me. Hope it's really inspiring to y'all, and that's really why I wanted to talk to him tonight. For those of you who don't know, what album did you just put out?
Oh,
That's going crazy right now.
right. Lone Star Luchador with that Mexican OT. It's in the top 100 or 200. I know Johnny Dang is like going crazy right now. Just hit 20 million on YouTube, which I just seen that today. It's certified gold that I've been told, so I'm waiting on a gold plaque and a Billboard plaque top 100.
Yeah, and I think it was #1 Heat Seekers too.
Right, it was.
Billboard, so
Yeah, I didn't realize there were so many different categories of Billboard until I like really started to pay attention.
yeah, it's every intern I've ever had goes on to do way bigger and better things than me.
Oh man, you forever the GOAT, bro.
And he did it so quick, and he didn't go to LA. He
Right.
didn't go to Atlanta. He just stayed here. He wasn't even in Houston technically.
Right. I'm in the country, man, and that was always one of my biggest goals for me as a person and engineer. I wanted to, cause in our eyes in the country, Houston was always popping, even though y'all felt like maybe y'all didn't have it as much as Atlanta or LA. In our eyes in the country, like where there's nothing but cows and shit, like y'all had it, right? So it's like that's why I drove those 2 hours to get over here every day, you know what I'm saying, to pick your brain, Todd's brain, everybody, and to learn from everybody. And my main goal was to take that radio sound and bring that to the country, because where I'm from, there is a lot of untapped talent, and now they're starting to see it with that Mexican OT. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Is OT from the same area?
So he's from Bay City. That's like the next county over. You know what I mean? So we're Brazoria County, and he's Matagorda County, but it ain't nothing but maybe like a 45-minute drive.
How did you guys start working together?
So it was from one of his homies was already coming to me, and all of his clique was coming to me. And ironically, we found this out like years later. His uncle is my cousin. So,
wow.
Yeah, just some Mexican shit, you know what I'm saying?
That's some country shit.
Right,
Yeah.
for sure. But, yeah, it was just like a homie of a homie thing, you know what I mean? And whenever, years went by and he started getting more serious, he started, coming to the studio like once a week. And, when we first got started, bro, like he was booking 1-hour sessions. He would spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes recording. I'd have 30 minutes to mix it and master it. He was shooting a video that week. By the weekend, it was dropping. It was like that. You know what I mean? And now we're blessed. We got the label. We can kind of take more time and just really work the records. But that's how it started, man.
Man, that's a great story. How many of you here are engineers or do any engineering at all?
Dope.
And how many of you produce? And how many of you do your own music? Yeah, like this is perfect. This is it.
Right.
On the engineering side, really the production side, I really can't stress like how important personal relationships are.
Absolutely.
No one, especially once you get to that point where you can do like $1,000 a mix status or something, which
right.
you might that gold record,
Yeah.
You're there. People seek you out, but all the time you have before that, it's never because of a mix sounds good that somebody really seeks you out.
Right.
It's always because someone else told them about you, or it's always a word of mouth thing.
Right.
So just having those personal skills and building that slow relationship up with somebody.
Right.
That's how you get. People are always like, "How do you get a good artist?"
Mm-hmm.
And over here, You don't. You get new artists.
Absolutely.
And you work with that artist, and they work with you, and if it all works out and it gels right, they become a good artist, and you become a better engineer.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, you nailed it right on the head, man. So honestly, it's all about rapport. Like if me and OT didn't really just click like that, like he's worked with 2 Chainz engineer, like he's worked with all the because he's constantly traveling. He's been all over the place, but any song that he's putting out, like it's getting sent back to me because we've built that rapport, that connection. He knows that I know what he's looking for, and we built a sound over the course of a couple of years, and so yeah, man, rapport is definitely key for sure.
How did you get him from doing like 1 hour mixtape songs to what you guys come up with now?
Right. So it comes down to, building, you know what I mean? And as his career started to get more, successful, it's like you kind of got to just educate, you know what I mean? He didn't know what a track out was. So it's like, okay, look, this is what beat stems are, and we can take the song to this level. And since he was getting traction, it was like, okay, we need to put our best foot forward. And, that's kind of how that came about, you know what I mean? So educate your artists, I can't stress that enough.
Because the album, man, is so cohesive. It sounds really good. All the songs sound real blended and put together. Are you in the box, out of the box? What's your analog versus digital?
Man, right. So mixing wise, I'm pretty much all in the box, but everything that I record that comes straight from me, it's a Lawton 386 tube mic, and that's going into a Bay 1073, and then I got the 1073 going into a Tube Tech, and then from the CO1B it goes into the Apollo 8P.
Man, that's a good vocal chain.
Oh, bro,
right
it's
there.
beautiful, man.
That's a really
it's
good
beautiful,
vocal chain.
man. That's like one of the most common, as you know. The Mike Deans use it. Like it's been used everywhere,
Yeah, but the Lawton, like, what made you get that mic? Because I love that mic.
Hey, shout out Big Kang, man. It's a whole lot of Barron Studios stuff going on, bro. If y'all don't know Big Kang, he came through Barron. He was there when I was there. And I think I posted on my story. I was thinking about getting the Manly reference cardioid, I think is what it was called. And he was like, bro, you got to check out the Lawton 386. And he was telling me, that's what Cardi B used for Bodak Yellow and just a lot of different shit. And he told me, what it could do. And so I started looking into it, and I'm like, that's interesting because it has the 3 different modes. It has like I think it's called like neutral, gentle, and forward. And you technically get 3 different tones into that microphone. And as I started doing more research, I think his name is Ash, I don't know, he's Cardi B's engineer, it's Ash something. And he says it's better than a C800G, and I'm like, I don't know, so.
We're gonna have to do a shootout. We're gonna have to do.
Hey, I'm all for it, bro.
Now.
But in the forward mode, right? It has to be the forward mode. So I got it, man, and I never look back. I love that thing. But honestly, my bad. I know you're finna say something. My next mic is probably gonna be the 251, the Telefunken.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I want one of those too. You can buy me one too. So like, what's next for you in OT? Like, what do you do after this? Do you feel, as an engineer, as an artist in your own right too, do you feel any pressure after something like this?
Pressure, no. Motivation, yes. Right. So, OT doing what he's doing, bro, it highly motivates me as an artist and as an engineer because, like I said, from an engineer standpoint, like he's worked with a lot of big names. So it's like I got to make sure that I'm on top of it on my P's and Q's and, keeping that rapport good. And, there's never been no issue there. Like, I'm still cranking out a better mix than his rough mixes when he's on the road or whatever. So everything's been, copacetic. And as far as an artist, it's crazy motivation, bro. It motivates me, and I've seen it motivate a lot of people in my area because, back then, especially when I was coming up rapping, me being from a small country, if you were doing music, you were a wannabe rapper. And that's because our music sounded terrible down south because we had not even close to radio quality. It was terrible. So there was just that bad stigma on rappers. And now that there's more engineers starting to grow up, things are sounding better,
It's not so stigmatic.
Right. I kind of lost my train of thought. But, the motivation aspect. highly motivated. Actually, me and OT, it's my song featuring him. We got a music video this Sunday
Oh man, that's
coming
gonna
up.
be awesome. What's the song called?
Frontline.
Frontline.
Yeah, it's gonna
Comes
be lit.
out not today Sunday, but next Sunday.
Oh, we're shooting the music video next Sunday. Yeah, I don't know when it's gonna come out yet.
Good
I'm
luck,
sitting
good
on
luck.
like 11 videos right now.
And see again, like just that relationship. I know this firsthand. It sucks when you work with an artist and you develop a sound with them, and they blow up, and then labels swoop in and put them with all their own people. The label wants to put the artist with their people. They've got their own cabal of very talented people that I'm super
Right.
jealous of too. That they want to put them with, because the artist too. When the artist gets signed, the artist is paying the label's engineer.
Right.
They're paying the label's producers. They're paying the label's songwriters. Like they're just literally putting their money back into those resources, and those resources are usually very good resources too. They're great studios, good engineers, people that have multiple Grammys and #1 hits and everything else.
Right.
But the only thing that's gonna keep someone working with you in that capacity is that relationship.
Yeah, 1000%. And so he's put out 2 projects with the label. The first one, it was pretty much all me. Like I didn't have any like label people breathing over my shoulder. The second one, some people started swooping in, you know what I mean? Because the first one made noise, and before we knew it, man, the label, that's he's working with, started putting their hands on every record, and that's one thing you'll learn too. Like once you get to that point, like everybody wants a piece of the pie, and everybody's gonna put their hands in to try to get it. And I was blessed that we had a good relationship, so I didn't get cut out, but I did start to see other producers not being used as much and stuff like that. But, it's not for a bad reason. I wouldn't say it's like militia intent, but,
Everybody's got their version of what it's supposed to be.
right. That's what it is.
That's what it is. And when somebody's put a lot of money behind you, their voice is a little louder than everybody else's voice.
1000%, bro. Yeah, man.
But I mean, it's borderline political at some point.
For sure.
But it's good just if you got that relationship with the artist though, that you can lock in, cut out all the noise, and you just get back to that day one feeling of y'all being in a room together, vibing and making a good song. And the bigger the artist gets, they need that.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
They need real moments like that in their careers again too after a while.
Right. And this is kind of about that. OT always, calls my spot home, right? And so whenever we were doing like the final listen through, Johnny Shipes and Fee Banks, Johnny, he owns Cinematic, Johnny, and Fee Banks, I don't know if he's managed an NBA young boy, but he's a big name, ran with Young Money and shit. They flew down. They're in my home studio. You know what I mean? My home studio is pretty much a renovated garage. And OT's like, nah, you got to come down here. And it just goes back to the relationship.
Yeah, that's something else to point out. C4 wasn't working at other studios doing this. Like he was driving 2 hours to come work over here while he was building, basically while he got a house and while he was building a studio at his house. So he literally like did all of this like from the home studio.
Right.
Home studio sounds like not what it looks like now, and not the kind of equipment it has in it. But he like literally like that was his process. All this came out of his crib.
Right.
This is him building that kind of relationship with OT, and this is him getting an artist, on the Billboard, like 2 albums deep on the majors, from his house.
Right.
From his home
And
studio.
yeah, you can definitely do it from your house. Like he comes to my studio. He comes to my studio. They can tell you got to walk through my kitchen to get to my studio. Like it's definitely a home, man. And but it's very possible if you take that time to really understand how all of this stuff works from not only the business side and the audio side, but just all the little scientifical stuff like the acoustics, man. If I didn't learn all that stuff from Todd, like I wouldn't be where I'm at sound-wise, because that is just crazy. So you can be in a home studio, make sure your acoustics are right, mine's right, and I mean, yeah.
Yeah, there's no point in spending thousands and thousands of dollars on speakers if your room's bad.
For sure.
It's just going to be an expensive bad room.
Yeah, man.
How do you decide what artists work with you at your home?
That's a good question. So one thing about me, I've always been word of mouth. Like I've never ran a single ad, never for my studio, and it is because it is at my home. So What's up, bro? My boy Rue in the building. What's good, bro? Yeah, so, you know, it being at my house, I obviously don't want to make it too quote unquote big where I just get a whole bunch of randoms. But so everything's word of mouth. So I know if you're coming to my studio, you're coming because someone referred you that I already know that I trust and let in my house. Except one time, luckily he was a cool guy, but he found my studio on Google Maps. He typed in Press Play Studios, which I didn't even know I was on, and that was a whole weird situation. Like,
he just showed up.
bro, yeah, he hit me up on IG and booked it. So I'm like, okay, like maybe he knows me from somebody, because you got to know, like, the plants are right down the road, so there's people coming in, and it's like, I need a studio, and they come to me, right? So I'm thinking maybe it's something like that, and we're probably about like an hour into the session. I'm like, yo, bro, who referred you? He's like, I found you on Google Maps. I'm like, okay. So I was like, damn, I'm glad you wasn't a weirdo, but.
Have you ever had any like turned up unruly situations happen that were like?
Nah, bro. As far as like people being aggressive and shit, definitely not. Like, nah. I've had some people try to take control of the session a little too much, like literally telling me how to move every single EQ module, where to set the compressor, and I'm like, bruh, like you can literally, you know what I'm talking about. And I've never ever in my life wanted to be like, all right, bro, I'm not the engineer for you, but that was like one of them times, yeah.
Yeah, how do you deal? What's the best way to deal with artists like that?
Honestly,
or what do you? No, let's not even put it that, because I don't want to single anybody out.
right.
What's the best way? What do you do when it's just not right? When it's just not right between you and the artist? How often does that happen? And what do you do when that happens?
So I've been doing this for damn near over a decade, and that's only happened once. With, like I said,
Try not to single somebody.
Right. But honestly, I don't know how to answer that question, because I worked with this artist for a year or two before I was like, look, bro, you know what I'm saying? I just can't, you know? And so I'm probably not the best person to ask, because I was a little too nice for that situation, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a difficult,
you know.
that's a difficult thing. All right. Okay. So besides that, what do you do about demo love? Because that's something I really struggle with now. When I first started doing this, everybody wanted your version of the mix or the song to sound like a whole different thing than what it was. And now everybody wants the song to sound exactly like the demo. But on the other hand, the demos are also like really good now for the most part.
That's true.
But what do you do?
Kind of sometimes.
What do you do when your vision of a mix or a master is different than the artist's version?
All right, so for the most part, all of my clients, like, they like trust me, like, when no questions asked, right? And I really didn't start getting the demoitis or whatever, people being married to the mix, until I started dealing with the label. And it wasn't even OT, like, because OT, he's whatever C4 says, you know what I mean? Like, it's like that. But once the label started getting a little more hands-on, it was like, oh, the kick needs to sound like this. Oh, let's not use the track out for this mix anymore. Let's just go back to the 2-track. So dealing with stuff like that. But I think we nipped that in the bud. So I'm hoping, like, moving forward with the next project, like, it's not like that. But
that's always real surprising to me, because and I go through the same thing.
Yeah.
And at first I always thought that the label's best interest would be for the songs to have the best quality around them, because in my mind that means you're going to have longer longevity, better sync opportunities, and all sorts of things that happen from that. But the labels really like are pushing for like the cheapest, quickest thing to happen. But it's weird, because when did labels go from being about quality to just like, we want everything to be like rough mixes and demos?
Right. So I think what it was in my specific situation, when I say the label, I mean like a group, a collective of people that are like A&Rs for the label that's dealing with OT, but they're also producers in their own right. So it's like a lot of the times they're making the beats, and so they want me to approach the mix like a producer. And so a lot of the times they want me to like tuck the vocal in way too deep on some like old school boom bap shit, so their beat can be heard more. So I think it's almost I don't want to say it's an ego thing, but it's like they want the beat to be heard more. And you know, a lot of these cats are from New York too. So if you think about New York in general, in terms of how their mixes used to sound, like vocals buried into the mix, mainly drum loops and stuff like that. So that's kind of where all that came from.
Southern engineers, we use more bass than the New York engineers, so we got to have bigger vocals.
Absolutely.
So we put more bass in our stuff than them. So
Right. Everything got to fit.
What what's your mix bus looking like these days?
I
got a session. I got a session from you from I don't remember who the artist was now, but it was one of your sessions, and you had like a Wave C6 or C4 plugin on there.
Oh, definitely not
and
me.
It was like raised up.
Nah, I don't use C4. I am C4.
You C4.
Nah,
we gotta clip that. That was perfect.
I mean, honestly, bro, like, I'm not like a huge fan of Waves plugins.
Yeah, me neither.
But there is a couple of random Waves plugins that I'm like, yo, these are pretty lit. You put me on one, the Shep's Parallel Particles from like years and years ago. I still use that to this day.
I still use that one too. That one's good.
Yeah. The BB Tubes is super dope too. I like the warmth on that. But yeah, to go back to mix bus. So I got my pre-mix bus, right? And on that I'm using Unison. Bus compressor. I got that going into Ozone Imager, I believe. And then I got the inflator. And then like the master, I got the God Particle. Love that. I've been using I think it's the 8200, the Pulsar EQ. It's amazing. So I've been using that. And then at the very end, like I have the Fab Filter limiter.
And you primarily are doing all your own mastering too, right?
Oh yeah, 1000%.
Are you Did you do all the final masters on
everything?
Man, that album sounds so good. Songs
Thank you,
are
bro.
consistent where his vocals are.
Thank you.
It sounds like it's the most Texas sounding record I've heard in forever. Like it sounds really, really good. Like it represents the South right. And every time rap is started somewhere, it has like this stamp that it puts on something. And of course, like coming out of New York. And from the artist there, it put this stamp out. And whenever it went to Atlanta, we got trap out of that. You know, like there's these little stamps that goes everywhere with it. And or the West Coast, it was like the G-Funk stuff and Dre and everything else from there. And I always thought that in Texas, like it would be Hispanic artists would blow up out of here, because like where else it's not going to come from Ohio like that.
Right.
You know, and that was always supposed to be our thing all the way back from SPM,
yeah.
On up, and we just the industry just never played nice with that.
Right.
And this is like the first time where I've seen a Hispanic artist like be this embraced,
right,
and get the kind of shine that they're supposed to, because we've had GT Garza's, we've had Happy Perez's and Baby, like there's been a lineage of really, really dope artists that really grinded and would tour relentlessly and just kind of kiss the ceiling a little bit. But this is the first time where I was just like randomly on YouTube and I see him on Flagrant.
Yeah, bro.
You know, with like Andrew Schultz and like a million views in like 24 hours. You know what I mean? Like that kind of reach.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about all of that is it was just like completely organic. You know what I mean? Like blew up on TikTok, all his followers and all of that, they funneled to IG, and then everything just kind of funneled. You know, he was hitting 1 million views before the label. You know what I mean? So it being so organic, everything just kind of fell into place.
What do you do like for the next album? Do you guys want to be consistent? Do you guys talking about forging other sounds? Is that even conversation? Is it just all organic?
It's very, very, very organic. He kind of just does what he feels, you know what I mean? And when it comes back to me, you know, I just put my little flavor and sauce to it, and that's really it.
I love the fact that he trusts you like you're the sound guy.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
100%.
That's how me and Ken's relationship is. Like,
right.
She'll still tell me what to do, like for sure. Like, look, she's kicked whole mixes back that I spent like 6 hours on it, got track outs from producers and been like, nah, like, that thing we did in 15 minutes that day, like that's the one.
Right.
You know.
I got a cool little story about that. So on the Lone Star Luchador, there's a song called Hit List, right? That song was recorded in 2019, 2020 on a Slate microphone, straight into the Apollo. And this was back when he was doing those 1 hour sessions. So I probably spent 10 minutes on it, maybe mixing, right? The song never got put out. It was supposed to be Big X the Plug song before he blew up. So it got sent to him. Years and years down the road, we're putting out this project. They want to, revamp that song. I'm like, all right, cool. So we re-recorded. He wanted to go back to the 2019.
Just don't feel the same.
Right. So I'm like, fuck. All right. So I mixed that the best I could. And then we couldn't get the Big X, the Plug vocals. So no shade to whoever did it, but it was terrible. Like, it was piercing to the ears. It was crazy. And we couldn't get the stems. He couldn't re-record it. So what I had to do is I took his mixed 2-track, lined it up, cut my part of the beat out, did some crazy fade stuff, and then I had to do some mid-side EQ into that to even tame his vocals a little bit. And then Big Yavo, he sent his vocals over, so I got to mix that. But people been loving that song and like sharing it to their story, and I'm just like it makes me, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm self-conscious about it.
Ken and I just got one out on Rock Nation, and the mix that's on there, producer got me the track outs. I got a good relationship with the producer. He sat in on a mixing session. Like, we mixed that thing for hours, mastered it, all analog mastering, like made it beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Sent it to her, and she was like, "That's cool, but."
Yeah.
I really like that thing. And whenever we did it, when we recorded her vocals, the producer literally had like some loops. It wasn't the beat yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was always the plan to like, let's just lay this idea down. I gave him acapella stems. He's going to like re-edit the beat around you. And then we get this song out of that. And that wasn't it. Like, whatever the order was of the 2-track that day, like, that's what's on the album now.
Right.
And no promo behind the song, no video behind the song, no nothing. That's the fan favorite.
It's wild.
That's the one they want at shows. That's the one that the label went crazy for. Like, that's the one. And it horrifies me.
Like, what are they listening for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, it comes down to that feeling, though, because at the end of the day, everybody has their own perspective and what they feel like the song should sound like, right? And it's just, our job as engineers to give them that, as hard as it may be, even we got to push our egos to the side sometimes.
That's true. How do you differentiate working with someone as an engineer or as an artist or as a producer? Like, do they all just kind of naturally come into play for you, or do you have like boundaries when it comes to you working with people as far as like what your artistic input is?
Right. So, man, I often get called a producer. That's not really what it is, but in a traditional sense, it kind of is, right? Because I approach every session as we're going to make this the best song possible. Whether that means, maybe we should change this line to this. Maybe a lot of the times they don't have the arrangement right. Like, they'll do like a 27-bar verse. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe we should cut, the first 8 and make that a hook. Do this 12-bar verse, and we'll make this a 4-bar bridge. And give me more energy. Just really helping produce the song. So that comes from, I guess, like a artist mindset in a way, as far as how I feel like things should sound. And for the most part, bro, like, I don't have any, clients like, nah, like, I don't want to do that, So I approach it like that.
I need to get all your clients. These are good guys. I'd like to open it up to you guys for any kind of questions for me or for C4, or if we can elaborate on anything, if anyone's got anything. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, what's up, boss? Oh, okay. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. Cool people, bro. Yeah, man. He's there every time he's back in Texas. Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what's up, man.
Is he still? Oh, sorry.
I have a question from the live stream. They want to know, can you give some quick guides to improving acoustics in your home studio?
Ooh, nice.
You took me on to the Rockwell. No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So what I recommend for acoustics, man, where I got mine from SPI Installation here in Houston. I think it's off Yale Street. And get the fiberglass installation, the 703. That right there will set you apart. So back in the day when I was still building out my studio, I was using bed foam. Terrible as shit. Don't ever do that. And then I'm like, all right, this foam says it's acoustic foam, so I'm gonna use that. It's meant for acoustics. And all my vocals just sounded extremely, extremely muddy. And so Todd put me on, he's like, the reason it sounds so muddy is because the frequency range isn't absorbing as much. So all those like low frequencies are still bouncing around off the walls, and it's only absorbing like the mid-range frequencies, right? So he put me onto the fiberglass, the 703, amazing. And you can also use rock wool. So at my studio, everything's 703, but in my corners I got rock wool. Essentially the same thing, just different material.
And the go ahead.
And my bad. Another thing to note too, whenever you are like hanging these up, make sure you have those air gaps, because the sound wave needs to break down. So it'll go through the insulation, bounce off the wall, go through more air, which breaks it down even more. So by the time it hits the material again, like it's pretty much completely dissipated. Shout out to Todd.
You had a question, brother?
Oh.
Great question.
That's an amazing question. So I'm super busy all the fucking time, right? And it is hard. And honestly, I'm still working on me and trying to figure out how I can balance it. So what I've been doing as of lately is I got Google Calendars, right? So I set up all my clients, and it's like, okay, this Sunday I'm taking off. I'm not taking a client, like no matter what. And I literally have to put it on my calendar, bro. So really it's about being okay not making the money that day, and knowing that either your artistry is more important that day or your mental health. Because I mean, burnout is very real, and I get that shit all the time. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still working on it, but yeah, like just really schedule it out, you know what I mean?
There's like two modes. There's this freak out anxiety mode I have of, oh shit, I'm not booked out for 2 weeks. I need to get some stuff on my calendar. And then it goes from that straight to, oh shit, I'm booked out for 2 weeks, and
Right.
I don't have any free time at all. And I just bounce between those two poles. And I wish I could articulate my life the way you articulated that great question.
Right.
That was good.
Another thing too, man, if you don't have a team, get you a team. So, you know, I got a whole team. So it's like whenever I am in sessions, like I got people that is working on editing my music videos or setting up the next press run or running ads for me and doing essentially everything that a label should be doing. But I know it's hard as like an underground artist to have people that are willing to believe in this as much as you do. But it's like once you find those core people and build with them, like it'll really, really, you know, take some stuff off your plate to where, you know, you can bounce back between the artist, producer, you know, engineer.
Back to relationships again. There's going to be a common theme tonight between all this working out.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
relationships with other people. Who else has a question? Yes, sir.
What's the importance of loves in mixing? So I'm an artist and I produce to the side, but as I progress with C4 throughout the process, you know, loves has always been a really big thing in the conversation. So I would like for both of y'all,
For sure.
if you don't mind, to elaborate on that.
Yeah, LUFS, loudness units, full scale. Yeah, I thought it was square for some reason. It is scale. Tomato. Pretty much, man. That's just how engineers track perceived loudness, and so that really started from TV. So I don't know if you remember, like back in the day, there would be commercials and like you might wake up in the middle of the night because a loud ass commercial. It's because there was no standards for how loud stuff needed to be. So TV adopted the LUFS or loofs, some people call it that, right? And they used that, and then music adopted it. So it was like, okay, this is how we're gonna keep track of how loud things are gonna be. What are you mastering stuff at?
So before I answer, because I'm going to ask you too. Hold on. We're going to finish right there. I was so glad when you asked that question because I was like, all right, I'm going to figure this out. Also, though, when streaming services became like the dominant form of distribution for music, streaming services want to have their loudness target. So everybody kind of had to agree on a unit of measure for how loud something was going to be. Yeah.
Right.
Because they want, and the way radio got around this is whenever when you listen to a song on the radio sounds cool, but it sounds like shit compared to like the CD or the original file or anything off of iTunes or anything, or Apple Music now. Because radio's got away with this by using a limiter on everything. So no matter where they would play a song from, everything would be different volumes. They'd run it through another piece of equipment that would just kind of crunch it all together to try to keep everything at the same volume. Streaming services, though, weren't going to invest in that kind of technology. So they just said, hey, we want you to make all your stuff at this target of loops here. Like Spotify's -14, Apple Music is -18. But nobody that I know of, but maybe C4 because I didn't ask yet, no mastering engineers adhere to those targets at all.
No, not at
No
all.
professional mastering engineers
Absolutely
adhere to those
not.
targets at all. So I also feel like it's kind of if you do your own music and do your own mixing and do your own mastering, you're going to send something in at -14, and Atlantic is going to send something in at -7. And no matter what the normalization does on the streaming service, that -7 is going to sound way more aggressive and impressive than that -14 that you uploaded right there.
Right. And like you mentioned, the normalization. So I believe Spotify, I'm not too sure about Apple Music, that automatically comes turned on. You have to go in and turn it off. So if you turn it off, you can go and listen to like Rap Caviar and see what the range is loudness wise over the course of whatever's hot, right? As far as what I'm mastering at, I'm shooting for -8.
-8, that's right around where I go to.
Yeah, that feels pretty good.
The more bass you have, the harder it is to get it that loud. The less bass you have, the louder you can get the music.
Right. I've been trying to focus more on like the mid range and really just getting the mid range to glow and like really focusing the energy there. Because I feel like when I do that, I get that loudness, but it still has like that like lush. I hate using warm, but like just that vibe.
No, man, that whole all OT stuff, like it's got this warm, it's got a roundness to it. It doesn't pierce the ear. What do you do for like sibilance? Is that a lot of that the mic? Because that is like he's got a hype on the top of his voice that makes it clear. So there's a lot of clarity, but there's no harshness in his vocal at all.
So the best way to avoid like a crazy amount of sibilance is recording like knock that shit out while you're recording. So a lot of the times, like just going through my vocal chain, like it sounds good, but I'm like, I want to make it more brilliant, brighter, right? So once I start adding that, I'm already knowing like those S's are gonna poke out. So as I'm recording, I'm compensating for that. I'm already clip gaining the S's down and all the sibilance. You know what I'm saying?
Sorry, Detroit there. That was a real question. Like I forgot to ask that one earlier.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I'm kind of weird in a way. So if it's recorded at my spot, I'm using the Neutron 4. But anything that I'm getting from a different studio, I'm using the UAD 1176, the blue face one.
I bet you because
stripe.
the stuff you record at your studio, it's probably gain staged right for that Neutron 4. And if something's like
in the tube tech
too hot, then the Neutron 4 doesn't work. But that 1176, like no matter what you throw in it, like it's gonna just nail it.
Right, for sure.
Yes, sir.
Man, I've noticed like subtle differences. I feel like the EQ sounds, I don't want to say cleaner, but I do like the EQ better on the Neutron 4. Yeah, but that's probably the only difference. But I do know whenever I go back to like old sessions that have the Neutron 3, I replace it with the Neutron 4, and I typically like it better. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's a mind thing. I don't know, but I do like Neutron 4 though. What's up, bro? Right. Man, I feel like from 6 months to about a year, bro. You know what I mean? It was about 6 months to a year. And oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah, because OT always had like a similar sound to what he has now, but he didn't really have the quality, you know what I'm saying, to back it up. And once he got into my studio, he was able to experiment more. So like you hear on Lone Star Luchador, like he's doing a lot more singing stuff, and it's because he feels comfortable that he can do that. So over the years, like we were able to experiment a little bit more and really cultivate his sound. About 6 months to a year, yeah.
Sir.
Obviously, trained ears are the best way to mix something.
Right.
Visually, what type of metering system do you use, and what type of levels are you looking for throughout your mix?
Okay. So for years, plugin wise, I was using Insight by Isotope, but I didn't like, while I was like mixing and stuff, like it would kind of make my computer bug a little bit, just because of my system or whatever. So I ended up getting the TC Electronic. I can't even remember what it's called, but it's a hardware reader that I can monitor the LUFS, True Peak, all of that, like in real time right there without having to open up a plugin.
It's like a separate unit that's
Right.
not of the computer. It sits on the outside.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, what levels are those hitting at before you merge them, and what levels come out as in the main?
Right. So honestly, to be completely honest, like I stopped looking at my meters in my mixing phase, and or I should really say tracking phase, because whenever I mix, I do top-down mixing now. So like before I even get into moving EQ or compressor on my vocal, like I'm turning my whole master on, and I'm kind of mixing into that, and because I know what I want the end result to sound like, and it just gets me quicker there whenever I do it that way. But to kind of answer your question in terms of like, I guess, gain staging, I automatically, my beats at like a -11, everything else is like -5, and I kind of just work into it like that. But in terms of like LUFS, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe like -16 before I turn on my my master. Yeah, for sure. So K20, like those are the meters that I got set up in Pro Tools, but honestly, I don't look at that shit. Like
But-
I look at like LUFS, like
Yeah.
really. That's
The,
it.
the benefit though of you using the K20 like that though is you got to make your mix feel loud through the mix first. You can rely on the limiter and stuff to get it up there, but if you make your mix feel loud and you're at K20, you got so much headroom, and then
Mhm.
you literally smack a limiter on at the end of it and just pull it down, and it's going to be loud. So there is like a good benefit to using
Mm-hmm.
K-weighted metering and stuff too. Yes, sir. I like them. I like them. I wish you could have that kind of aesthetic though with better quality. Trying to get a track out from a rage beat producer is almost impossible.
I don't know anything about that. So
Like those Yeet style beats and like Cardi, like a whole lot of Red style beats.
is it like the super distorted bass
super
and stuff?
distorted bass and synths,
Right. Yeah.
distorted hi hat.
Right. I get those beats every now and then. I'm not mad at them. Like I get it's a stylistic choice, but I feel like if you can control the distortion and saturation to where you still can hear it, but you don't feel it like hurting your ears, like it's cool. But it's usually never like not like that though.
It's weird because on a commercial level, if you look at like metal and rock music and stuff like that, there's these little subgenres that always come up and get like massive commercial attention, like in the rock world. And in the rap world, it feels like, especially right now, like they're kind of detouring from that in general. Because even like the new Trippie Redd record is like a ballad album.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll throw out like a Mr. Rage or something like that to like kind of like, to feed the bass a little bit. But when the major label albums come out, it's like a very watered down version of what that artist is doing.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that record. That's one of my favorite records probably of the last 10 years. Yeah, I think it's a classic too. Okay. Yes, sir.
Even after doing it for this long and for this season, is it still hard to realize and say that okay, I'm done, or it still takes sometimes it takes a minute to where you realize okay, I'm done, I don't need to do anything else. How quick does that come to you now?
In terms of the mix being finished or the master? Right. That's a good question, man. So for me, I try to get it quote unquote as done as I can get it, but I always like to come back to it. You know what I mean? So I'm real big on having fresh ears, because you know, a lot of my clients, they'll have like a 4-hour session. We spend like 2.5 hours recording, and I'm recording in headphones, so like my ears are already low key a little fried. So I'll mix for the last 2 hours, and I'm like, okay, this is cool, but you know, if you come back like with I have some fresh ears. You know what I mean? I'm always gonna hear something that I want to do, but it's about getting it to feel as good as it can and making sure the artist is happy with it. And once I get it to that point, I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Me personally, as soon as I start forgetting that I'm mixing, as soon as I start having fun, like I feel like I'm probably at a good spot.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I just start like getting into it a little bit, I'm like, okay, wait, like I'm probably done then. Because before that, I'm just like, what I gotta change this, or what about this, or what about this? But yeah, you get to this spot where I forget that I'm mixing and I'm just actually just wilding out and having fun, and then it's like it's probably time to stop.
Right, and I feel like if you can play the song from the very beginning and let it play through all the way, and like nothing jumps out at you, then the song's done. You know what I mean? But if you hear a hi-hat that's poking a little too much, or something that just doesn't feel good, then maybe revisit the mix.
I usually listen to the reference first, and I really like, and I don't listen to the reference critically though. If I try to listen to the reference critically, like then I do all the wrong things. Like when I try to mix a song, I try to listen to the reference as something I'm not working on at all. Like I'm just listening to it for the first time, and I figure out like what do I like about it first.
Yeah.
And then I try to mix the track in my way to be exactly like the reference, and then I start my mix off of that spot right there.
See, whenever I listen to the reference, it's usually when I'm a quarter of the way in or midway in, because I don't want to be like too influenced, right? So I like to put my little spin on it, and then I'll listen to it to see, was there a beat drop right here, or like is the vocals more present, or is it tucked back a little bit? And once I kind of figure out that, then I'm like, okay, maybe I am doing a little too much right here. Let me bring that back, you know.
How important are references? Do you listen to references before you mix other people's work?
Before, not really, unless they ask me to. Like I said, midway, quarter way in, I might.
I mean, like not even like their work, like just other songs out there and stuff like that. Do you listen to stuff to like get your ears ready, or
in terms of like not their music, but like mainstream stuff?
Yeah,
right, right.
Stuff to see like where mixes need to go.
So if I'm doing a different genre, yeah, typically I will. So I've been getting a lot of corridos lately, like people coming in playing guitars and doing.
The lyrics are like super gang.
Oh, bro,
yeah,
super trap, right?
That stuff's hard.
So I've been getting a lot more of that lately, and so at that point I'm like, okay, let me listen to, you know, some top songs that are like popping right now, so I know what to do.
You can't be putting that accordion up like that.
Hey, but I got my bass banging like it's trap though.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it's super hard.
Any other questions?
Yes, Bean.
For sure. I did used to do that a lot more until I got to a point where I felt pretty comfortable with my ears and like what I was wanting to achieve. So I know what numbers I'm looking for, and I know where I want the focus to be frequency wise in the mix. And I feel like if it feels good and it feels like what I'm wanting and the numbers are there, like I'm cool. If it's genre specific, like if I'm doing an EDM record, which I do, but not as much, like I'll listen to some EDM stuff, you know, because they're usually like -6, -5. But most like hip hop, R&B, like if you're pushing it, you're around like -8, maybe like -7. So I feel like if I get this to like -8 and it feels good, then I'm cool, as long as my dynamics are there.
I use a lot of references, but I mix like 20 or 30 songs a week sometimes.
Right.
Like I'm mixing all the time, and so I have to constantly because I'll get in my own head and be in my own bubble, and my own bubble might sound completely different than the artist that I'm working with.
Right.
So I constantly have to listen to references.
So whenever you're listening to these references, is this like songs that you're just mixing or recording and mixing?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Both.
For sure.
Like with Tisa. I got like if I'm working on Tisa stuff, I only listen to Tisa for like a week if I can.
Right.
I can, because his sense of where stuff should be balanced and my sense is totally different, and the rest of the world's sense is totally different.
Right.
But I'm mixing for him.
Right,
you
for
know?
sure.
And so I really just like want to get locked into that.
Right. And I mean, honestly, I do recommend listening to references. That's just something that I stepped away from. You know what I mean?
But no, that's a good question though.
What are some of your references? My bad. What are some of the references that you're listening to?
Man, it changes all the time. There's this one artist, his name's Labyrinth. He was like he did like all the Euphoria music and stuff. He's got this song called Mount Everest.
Okay.
Holy shit. Like I listened to his other stuff and like nothing else like really caught me like that, but this song is like so dynamic and cinematic. Like if I was mastering for like Toby or somebody like that, like I listen to his stuff because it has these quiet moments, these loud moments. It's more like a symphony, but it's still like real bass heavy and trappy, and the vocals are real crispy. It like depends. Like the song has to remind me of something first, and then I'll be like, oh, this key. I get nerdy with it though. I get down to like if the song's in C sharp minor and it's like an 808, like a trap song in C sharp minor, I'll find a reference song also
in C sharp
in
minor.
C sharp minor,
Right.
with that kind of bass too. So I can like, and then I put them on I got a bunch of like plugins where I'll grab curves so I can see like what that one looks like, and then I'll superimpose my curve on that so I can see like where they're different.
Right.
And I probably spend too much time on the reference and not enough on the mixing though. But I'll spend like 30 minutes just trying to find a song that like gives me that same feeling.
Right. Speaking of curves, I still reference the Astro World curve a little bit every
Oh
now
yeah,
and then.
I still use that one
Like
too.
that's still
yeah.
classic, bro. The Astro World curve is, as a project, is super dope.
We grow. Isotope makes a plugin called Tonal Balance Control, and it has no sound. It doesn't change your sound. It does nothing for your sound, but it's like the most valuable plugin I think that I've ever used. I've had it on my master bus for like years, and it allows you to like scan a song file in there, and you just see this little blob of the curve of the song. And the width of the blob is the dynamic range of the song, and that means like the lowest amount to like the loudest amount it can get. And the curve is like how the song was mixed and how our ears hear it, and that gets into the LUFs and everything too, because we listen to stuff at a slope. Like if we had the hi-hat and the high frequencies as loud as we want the 808s, like people wouldn't be able to listen to your music. It'd be piercing to them. You can ask that one guy that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like there's it's art. You can do whatever you want. There's no rules at all. But biology also says we like certain frequencies at certain levels, and there is a science. Like if you get into like the pop world, like when people are like the masters of the field, like the guys that write like 10 Billboard #1 hits a year, and it's literally like the same team behind a bunch of different female artists and stuff like that. Like they really, really get into that kind of stuff. And we have all sorts of like Soothe and all these things that take
Soothe
out
is
resonances
amazing.
for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a certain way that our ears want to hear things, and tonal balance control allows me to take a song that I like to listen to and see what it's doing. It doesn't EQ the song for me. It doesn't do any of that, but it just gives me this little window that I can look in. And so if I am working on an EDM track, different genre or something, I can pull up. I go through like Billboard Top 10, this week. And also I don't listen to any references older than like 6 months ago. I constantly are just keeping up
That's
with
smart.
new stuff.
That's smart.
It's because music changes so fast now. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What engineers have influenced your sound throughout the years, and what engineers that you kind of found nowadays influence you going forward?
For sure. So, iDREAMINSTEREO, Mr. Jason right here was my first big influence. Like, no cap, for real. I still, like I said, he's taught me a lot of stuff, and there's like things that I do this day that I got from him, right? Some other engineers, Jason Joshua, I really like what he's doing. Another engineer that I don't know if a lot of people know of him, Luca Pertolesi. Bro, he is probably an engineer as far as like that does online stuff that I've learned the most from online wise. Luca Pertolesi. Those are probably top two.
Yeah, Luca Pertolesi, like especially in the EDM world and stuff like
for
that,
sure.
like he goes crazy.
Which I try to incorporate in my trap stuff now, like the way he makes it more bouncy and you can feel the pumping. Like I've been trying to incorporate a little bit of that for the groove.
I really like Baines.
Baines is
A lot.
dope. TZO's cool.
Tume, TZO, all those guys. I like those guys because those guys are all the engineers that got headphones on in a room with 15 people that are all strapped up. and like they just got to be in headphones for 6 hours in rooms full of people going crazy in these hard ass sessions that last for like 3 days at a time.
Yeah.
And they're making like the best work. Yeah, like the rap studio scene has like changed a lot in the last
For sure.
in the last couple of years. Oh yeah, that's cool. It is cool, but at some point everybody's gonna fight. Someone's gonna cry. Someone's gonna cry. Let's get him. Yes, sir. Sometimes I change up all the time. I get locked in a little groove, and then I switch, and then I get locked. I go through like we're talking about burnout and stuff like that earlier. As soon as I start feeling like, oh, I don't want to mix something, I just start doing it different just to be entertained.
For sure.
I really like just to entertain myself. I do top-down mixing, though. Like, if you've got a lot of stuff to do, like, it's a great way to do it. But you also got to think about, like, you're mixing into your limiter the whole time. Or at least you're mixing into your mix bus the whole time. And so I think if you understand gain staging, then I do recommend top-down mixing. If you're still figuring out gain staging,
Right.
then you got to be careful with it a little bit.
Yeah. Right. For me, right. For me, it's both. Like my like pre-master and my main master, I turn everything on. I might not like push it too much, but I do have everything on though. And like my limiter isn't really doing too much of nothing. It's just on some like safety net stuff. But it goes back to gain staging. Like I didn't start doing this until maybe like 2 years ago, if that. You know, I got really comfortable with my gain staging and how my workflow is, to where I was able to do that and get my results quicker and keeping my dynamics. Because if you're mixing into it and like you're getting like 5 dB, 6 dBs of gain reduction, it's like you might need to look into gain staging on the mixing aspect first.
I'm gonna start top-down mixing though after hearing that. That's what he's doing now though. Like you guys just hit me up. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I bet as an engineering side of him though, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I bet the engineering side of you probably has helped you as an artist get shit done.
For sure. So there was a long point of time in my career where I was mixing and mastering for everybody but myself. Like I could not mix my own stuff. Like I don't know if it was because I was too critical or what, but it got to a point where it's like, man, I cannot mix myself. And over the years, like I kind of fought through that, you know what I mean? And as I learned more as an engineer, I felt like I was able to make my artist stuff go faster, you know what I mean? So it definitely helped. And, you know, being an artist helped me engineer, because when my clients need help with something, it's like I know what they're going for from an artistic point of view, and it's like I can help them get to that quicker.
I think every engineer of the future is also going to be a good music artist in their own right, and they're also going to be good producers. But what I hope people lean on the engineering aspect of their education and their thought process earlier on though too, because there's a thing in you as an artist, as a music artist in your own right, where you want to be known for like your thoughts and your voice and your words and how you feel about and what your view is on the world, and you want people to like embrace you for that right off the bat. And if it's not that, then as a producer, you want people to embrace you off of this beat, this feels good, my drums hit hard, and all that stuff. But there's so many other artists out there, there's so many other producers out there, but there's not a lot of good engineers out there, especially early on in artist careers. Once you're viral, they'll come at you and charge you $1,000 an hour, like they'll do all that. But early on in an artist career, they need a good engineer on their team before they need a beat maker usually, before they need a good songwriter usually. Newer artists, they're trying to write their own songs, and they got to figure that out. So it's even hard for them to interface with someone else on that level. You're competing as a producer against free beats on YouTube. And a new artist, like, they don't know what quality is yet or not, and they don't know like why they just can't download it off of YouTube and it's not going to sound like what they're hearing on the radio. But they do need a good engineer. And like I said, I think every good producer will be an engineer in the future. Every engineer will also be a producer in the future, and that means musician as well. So just being an engineer is a good way to get in with other creative people and provide a valuable service for them that they just can't get for free yet. Maybe 3 or 4 years from now, maybe AI will be doing it. But I mean, not even maybe, like, it's doing it. But again, back to relationships, like the engineering relationship is really important for people, and people need that.
How do you deal with indecisiveness when it comes from an artist standpoint? Like pets, you set boundaries, you deal with the flow.
This is a great question.
Man, that's a great question. Most of my artists ain't crazy
He's
indecisive.
like visibly getting tensed right now.
Yeah.
He just gripped the chair.
Man, I try to help the artists in their vision, right? Whether I agree with it or not. And if they're stuck in between two decisions, I'll give them my honest opinion. And if their decision I feel like sucks, I'm going to tell them. And 9 times out of 10, they'll trust my judgment. And if they don't, then I'm like, all right, what do you want to do? Like, we got to make a decision to move forward in the mix, or the song's not going to get done. And that's kind of how I approach it. But it's not too often I get super indecisive clients, other than that one.
There's differences between an artist being indecisive because of insecurity and being indecisive of what's best for the song. And I think when you feel like decisions need to be made for the song to be better, like, that's a natural creative process that I could go through with somebody forever, and that doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point, because if it's on some, like, should we do it this way or that way, and it's like one or the other, I'll bounce out both versions and I'll give them both and let them decide later. But if it's on some turn the hi-hat down 2 decibels, I'm sorry, turn it up 0.5 decibels, and it's like on some real incremental stuff that they're not really hearing but they think they're hearing, and they're just, like you said, self-conscious about certain things, at that point it's like,
now, some artists, though, some artists' ears are crazy. I've accidentally, I think on one of Cringe's songs, I accidentally put a hi-hat went down on my bus like a dB and a half.
That's a big jump, though.
And he, he was like, turn the hi-hat back up, or not back up. He was like, I need the hi-hat up a dB and a half. Like, he said it exactly. He said it exactly.
Yeah, that's different. That's what's up.
Why is it that in this industry right now, they're not giving engineers splits? And I think this is a big topic that no one talks about, because your producers are taking 50% of your publishing sometimes.
Right.
On what's going on, with that. So in your experience, as you've seen with working with OT and other things, have they offered you any type of splits? Do you have, is it preference versus, like, if you want to take per hour versus, you know what I'm saying?
So, right. Man, I ain't gonna lie. Because I was working with OT before he got signed, and then when he got signed, I'm not gonna lie, I came in there asking for everything. Like, I need this, and I want this amount of points. And obviously, I knew they was gonna be like, yeah, we can't do that. But you don't know until you try. And so they counter-offered, cool counter-offer, but they couldn't give me the points right now. So yes, they're saying, like, in the future we could probably do something like that whenever he gets that gold record, or this and that. And there's things called incentives, right, where an artist hits a certain milestone and then they'll give you an incentive, like, okay, if this album goes platinum, we'll up your pay per song by 500, or we'll start giving you this amount of points. So I've talked about that, and just different stuff. But it is extremely hard for engineers to get points. I don't agree with it. Like you said, producers, beat makers, they get 50% like off the rip, no questions asked. A handful of the producers, I feel like, do deserve the 50%. But in my opinion, the producer that spends 5 minutes on a beat and is using a MIDI pack from somebody else that's pre-played and grabbing a drum loop and putting it together, I don't feel like they deserve 50% when I spent 3 months or 2 months mixing a record and they just did something in 5 minutes. You feel me?
I think your generation though, and the generation right underneath you though, is going to be the ones to change that, because already, like we've seen with the engineers of the future, are all going to be producers and they're all going to be musicians. And so if that's where the engineers are coming from, and it's not just technical people coming in like that, once you're an artist and you're a producer in your own right, and you realize as an engineer that you're doing more work, like he just said, and not getting a piece of the pie, like y'all will be the ones to change that, hopefully, because engineers do deserve that. It isn't unheard of though. Artists have offered me splits before, and that's a personal. It's more of like a personal relationship kind of thing again. And if you're freelancing, or if you're starting your own studio or something too, like, you confront studio time for an artist for points. Like, if you find that right artist that you believe in and you think they can do something and they're doing what they need to do, like, you can do that too. And I don't dissuade people from doing that if you can't make money doing that initially. But if it's somebody you believe in or something that you believe in, like, you can lock in with somebody doing that too.
For sure.
So it wasn't for free, but it was an extremely discounted rate. Thanks to Todd there being cool cool with that. But Ken the Man, she was signed to Asylum Records, and they had management changes at Asylum, and she didn't agree with the management changes, so she split from them. And imagine how hard it is to make it in music anyway, and that's everybody's dream and what everybody wants to do. But imagine you get the deal, you're building momentum, everything's doing what it's supposed to do, and then you don't have the deal anymore. And so now you're just completely independent. You don't have the label resources. You don't have any of those things. That's a hard situation, I think, for anybody to be in. You've already done the Rolling Louds. You've already done festivals. You've already heard your shit on the radio. You've gone through all the artist milestones of like where you should be, and you get off your label deal. And so Ken came to me and Todd, like, when she was in this spot right here, and I believed in her, and Todd believes in her. We been recording her for almost 10 years. Like, we were the first studio she'd ever been at. And so I knew if we took our time and invested with Ken, that it was gonna not just financially pay off, because that's not it for me either. Like, it's that she's gonna do something with it. Time is such a valuable resource in this game too, because if I'm not in the chair mixing, I'm not making money. Like, and if I'm not making money, I can't feed myself, and then I got to get a day job like everybody else, and then I got to try to do this on the side. And like, I worked for a long time to get on that side of the equation. But I believed in Ken enough to come up on my days off when nobody else was in the studio, you know, and so we worked out. But again, it's like a personal relationship at that point. I'm trying to help my friend out, but I knew, I said she was going to do it in 6. I was like, in 6 months, we're going to come out with a group of songs. You're going to get a better deal. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And she did it like in 3, you know. And now that Ken can, like, everybody, all our peers, the Jason Joshuas of the world, everybody hitting her up to try to work right now. I mean, I tell her now, you need to go work with all of them. Like, I want to hear what Jason Joshua does on your drums. But at the same time, but she's always going to work with me too. You know what I mean? And so, like, we've got that relationship now.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Engineering is it is a art form. So when you putting out a lot of stuff commercially, or when you, like, hip hop has a sound, pop has a sound, rock has a sound. How much when you're putting out that much commercial stuff that you feel like you get to maintain your sound or your style, and compared to like artistic perfections like old school rock used to have? Like, how much do you feel you get to maintain your sound at from a commercial level, or your style of engineering? Or is it real sterile and pretty much industry standard?
From a mixing point of view, I really don't think I have a style. I don't think I have a style. There's definitely like there's things I'm influenced by, and there's things I interject into songs, and it's kind of whatever I'm into at the moment. But I think my style actually comes more from the interpersonal relationships that I have with the artists. Um, when when you're in a session with someone, you're fixing to start the session, you're just like bullshitting, but while you're getting set up, and you're like, man, what have you been listening to lately? And they start talking to you, and you're like, oh no, I never heard that, and or they, well, let me play you this song, or you're like,
Right.
there's something, or man, what's going on? And be like, oh, my mom just died, and you're like, oh shit, you know what I mean? But then there'll be something in that song that we record that day, where that conversation is like it's in there, like it's in the music that we made that day, and so I think my style is more like whatever the vibe is in the room that day, and like being real focused on trying to like get that in, that I don't worry about like the genres or the sounds or anything, because to me, like when I listen to those songs, I'm not hearing like their lyrics or the mix really. I'm just hearing like whatever was going on in our lives that day. It's like whenever I listen back to it.
Same.
I was like, follow that one up.
Right. I mean, honestly, I don't think I could have put it in words like that, but same. And plus, I feel like my style is always developing and changing, so I don't really pay attention to what's going on in the genre per se, but I just kind of do whatever I'm feeling.
I mean, I am real conscious though of like what's going on around me though as an engineer too. I wake up every day. I don't care about charts and I don't really care about radio play and stuff like that, but I do wake up every day and I want to know what's popping, like what's on Billboard, what are my kids listening to? Like I love music too, and I want to be able to like, I don't want somebody to come and like hit me up with an artist or a sound and like curve me with it. You know what I mean? Like I want to know about everything that's out there. So I do spend a lot of time just as a lover of music, just researching all music. But that also probably stops me from getting a style because I listen to so much shit.
I feel that. Right. The main difference that I've noticed between artists and how far that they've got in their careers is consistency. That's the main thing. Like going back to OT, like I said, the quality was decent. Could the songs have been better? Yeah, if we had more time, but it wasn't about that. It was about getting as much music out there and feeding the monster, feeding the people, and getting in front of as many people as possible. And I feel like that consistency and creating that content is what separated people. And honestly, that was my biggest issue. I had songs that I did with you that I never put out because I was always trying to over-perfect things. And now I'm trying to stop that, but that's the main difference. Put it out.
Oh, sorry, one sec. I think like artists who make a living off their music, they're able to do their music all day, but they don't really, in my experience anyway, they don't really obsess over the music that they're making. They really do get in this phase of just making a bunch of music. And if the song's good, like it'll stand out, and it'll go. Yeah. It'll do what it does. They don't really like get stuck. You have to make so much music as a professional artist. Like if you put out a song with like 10 songs on there, or an album with 10 songs, there was probably 100 songs actually behind that, right. And these are like the 10. And a lot of local artists, they'll get stuck on this one song. This is my ticket to do it, and it might be. And I don't want to dissuade anybody from that line of thinking either, but usually it's the process of making the 100 songs to get to that one. Yeah,
for sure.
Yes, sir.
Honestly, to be perfectly honest, like my end goal isn't to be the biggest engineer. I'm gonna be like an international superstar, right? That's the goal for me. So I want to get to a point to where I can hire on engineers, train them, they work, they continue to build the C4PLAY Studios brand for me, and I can focus on my artistry. Like that's always been my end goal, is to dive deeper into my artist stuff. I got one, I guess. And it may only be tedious because I'm not used to doing it as much, but the corrido stuff. So, for instance, I got these young cats that come in with like 5 different guitars, right? They got a 12 string guitar, a regular acoustic guitar, a bass, electric guitar, and I'm recording all of them live, and they all have to be on tempo. So you can't really quantize this style of music because it's meant to have a groove. And with that being said, it's not on a perfect grid. They're human. It's not a perfect time. So having to fly hooks over and stuff like that, it's a little more difficult, a little more tedious. And not only that, auto-tune isn't huge in that style of music. So I'm having to melodyne and hand tune all of these vocals and notes. So I would say that'd probably be my most tedious at this moment.
I do a lot of home recorded stuff, and I think the home recorded stuff, if I didn't record it, it takes me a lot longer to mix it.
Facts.
Because I just with the home recorded stuff, I'm really like, it's more like you got to figure out other textures. Like you got to figure out a texture that makes that USB mic feel to you the way like the Sony C800G mic feels.
And you got to figure out how to deal with their room noise. That's one of the things that I'm always struggling with. It's like, okay, you can tell it sounds like they're recorded in their garage or bathroom. So how am I gonna get that out? I use RX, C-Suite, but it's like, how much of that can I use before you start getting those artificial artifacts and it starts to sound weird?
Now that being said, though, the home recorded artists, the guys who make their own stuff at home and stuff, like to me, like I think that's also where I like to spend my time right there. I like to hear something before everybody else does. And by the time something hits Rap Caviar, and by the time something hits, the radio, it's kind of been out for a little bit. It's already been there. And I do get the most interesting things. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But I do like to get like just some shit I've never heard before, or we had a guy that would take a de-esser, like that's supposed to take S's down, and he would just throw Audition on there so you could just hear the bandwidth.
Yeah.
And that's what he used for all his ad libs, because to him that sounded like the 2 Chainz telephone filter.
Right.
And that's such a different way. I would never look at a de-esser and be like, yo, this is a telephone filter.
Yeah.
But
that's
he
funny.
just
you
was
said
hitting
that.
shit and it happened, and he liked it and I liked it. So to this day, like that's his ad lib sound.
How often is it whenever you solo a band and you're sweeping for frequencies and the artist's like, oh man, that's live. Let's. There's been a time where I put that on the master bus for like an opening effect of the song.
That's
Yeah.
hard. That's super hard.
So everything was just focused on one band.
Yeah. Anybody else got any questions? Yes, ma'am.
That's a good question. Some type of pitch correction for sure.
Yeah, I use auto-tune every day. And I've used it every day for like over a decade. I definitely need auto-tune.
Auto-tune for sure. If I could just pick one plugin or channel strip, it'd probably be the Neutron, just because like there's just so much within that plugin itself, the channel strip. So definitely that. I'd probably say Wavestune Real Time.
Oh yeah. I like
Particle.
any 1176 plugin. Like UA makes one, Waves makes the CLA 76.
I like the
Any 1176 style plug. I think there's a Bomb Factory one that comes with Pro Tools.
Yeah, the 76.
Any 1176 plugin is never a bad thing. You can do a lot. They're like Swiss Army knives for compressors. And for me, like EQ wise, like any Pultec style EQ, I really like a lot too.
The Mag EQ super dope too for the high end. What's up, bro?
Y'all tracking all y'all vocals just through, y'all use UAD, right?
Mm.
So y'all tracking it all through that, or do y'all got some extra plugins on whatnot on Pro Tools to shape it up as you hear it?
Right. So I know a lot of engineers that do use the console, like they use the Unison preamps, or they'll track their auto tune through the console or reverbs. I personally don't do that. I do everything in Pro Tools. I just like that workflow better for me. And I used to use the Unison preamps, but since now I'm doing all outboard for my vocal chain, I don't really do it no more. But
So yeah, his is yours is hitting. His is going from mic to the
1073,
1073
and then from the
into
1073,
the CL1B, and
Mhm.
those are the actual
like hardware units, yeah,
and then that's what's going into Pro Tools there. So he's kind of treating
right.
all those vocals like right on that front end.
So do you just like that sound when it's recorded in, or do you try to give the artist a little inspiration by, brightening up, cutting some of the low, when they're compressing?
Right. So it definitely creates a vibe going through, all the circuitry of the hardware, right? And so if it already sounds mixed, the artist is gonna have more confidence in their recording. So that's definitely a part of it. And so I got the preamp, and I usually keep the 1073 on 30. But if I feel like they need some more like warmth or grit in their voice, I'll push it up to 40, and that just adds a little bump of something, right? And sometimes I'm like, I'm not getting the sound from the 1073, so I'll pull the output down on that, and then I'll push the tube tech up more to kind of get the color I'm looking for. So between those two units, I'm using the EQ on the 1073 as well. So between all of that, I find the color that fits with the artist's voice, and I usually do that with like the first like couple of takes. I'll have them run through the whole song while I'm getting EQ, compression, finding the right tone.
Artists I work with talk a lot. I don't even get to listen like the right way, so I try to record as clean as I possibly can so I can change it later. We'll be too stoned to like make good decisions about frequencies sometimes, even just tracking.
Yeah.
So I do use the Apollo. I use the Unison pre's. We're also though I'm using usually a C800G. It's a Sony mic. It's a tube mic, and it's got its own preamp. And then I'll run that into like the Unison 1073 and usually 1176 or something like that after that. The hardware is great too, and we have the hardware 1073s too. But a lot of times I do default to the UA 1073. One thing with hardware, sound kind of changes sometimes, depending on the electricity, sunspots, fucking stars and Pisces. Like it just analog by its inherent nature is always changing. It's non-linear.
For sure.
And so sometimes like you can dial in a tone and everything, and the artist's voice too is also like just changes a lot
Right.
between sessions.
Mm-hmm.
The C800G helps a lot. Like that mic,
The tubes and
the tubes coming in that mic, so it is kind of going through this analog process coming in. It sounds almost done.
Mm-hmm.
Like just tracking it in, even if I don't put nothing else on it, it sounds. No, I do a lot of saturation, especially now because again, just talking about home recorded stuff. That's the way home recorded stuff starts feeling like smooth and right and leveled.
Mm-hmm.
Is not. So I don't compress so much on home recorded stuff, but I saturate more on home recorded stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, man, they change all the time. Right now, I like this SSL vintage saturation. I really like the SSL Fusion. It's a hardware unit. I use that a lot. I love if a producer sends me beats or stems or anything like that, I just run them through the SSL Fusion, and it's got a vintage drive on there that just to me it just sounds good on everything.
For sure. My favorite saturation, plug-in wise, the inflator. Inflator's super dope, and honestly, that BB tubes is super dope too, and it's not expensive. That's one of the Waves plugins that I fuck with.
Every saturation or distortion plugin, like if you can get them, just get them. They all sound different. They all have their own little colors,
Textures,
their
right.
own little textures and flavors. Jason Joshua, engineer he mentioned earlier, he does this one cool thing with Waves makes a thing called the NLS bus.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be this thing that goes on every single channel instance to kind of replicate the non-linearities of a console. And one of Meek Mill's engineers, I forget his name, but he had recorded a Meek Mill verse, and they sent Jason Joshua this session with this template in there. And the guy has 8 of these NLS buses on one track, and he's just running shit through it.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you take it off, it sounds flat and digital. And when you put it on, it sounds warm and vibey and analog. And they're all just different instances of the same plugin just stacked on top of each other that gives it this certain color.
Yeah.
And that's a cool thing too about digital stuff now. The difference between analog and digital now is just like how much money do you want to spend on gear that you like to use that your artists are never going to want to give you enough time for. Like that.
Right.
Because analog is time consuming.
Right. So hats off to you for doing analog mastering and like actually running it through gear and printing it. Like that's one thing that I haven't gotten into yet. just because, like you said, not enough time. So the most analog I get is like straight recorded in.
I cheat though. I cheat.
You use that.
I use a thing called Access Analog, and basically you can rent. They got all sorts of mastering chains from like a studio in Sweden, Chicago, and I rent the gear basically at a time slot, and then you get a little plug-in version, and you can tweak it and you hear it in real time. So it's got these little potentiometers, these little robot motors and servo motors on the equipment, and it adjusts it so like you make a move, and then you hear the move. And it has recall and everything, so it's like it makes it real quick.
Right.
But it's really expensive, and I could have
print
just
it.
bought this shit by now for the amount of money that I've spent using their service.
Yeah, that's some real innovative stuff. I remember first seeing it. I haven't used it yet, but it's dope. Super dope. What's up, bro? My master's all in the box. So the God particle that does a lot of the heavy lifting. Unisum is my kind of glue compressor that I'm using. And for like EQ type stuff, I'm using the Pulsar 8200, which is super dope EQ. And then a Fab Filter Pro L. I got that at the end, just kind of to make sure it catches any peaks, just in case.
Just as a side note though, between mastering and digital now, most of our peer engineers and most of like the old guard guys, like the Dave Pensados and the Michael Browers and stuff, the Andrew Sheps, you know, these famous guys, multiple Grammys and stuff like that, they're almost all in the box now.
Right.
Like everybody's in the box. In the last decade for sure, like the difference between digital and analog is like now it's just about how do you want to work. It's not about this sounds better than this. And to be honest with you, digital from a technical point of view has always sounded better than analog. We like analog because it covers up stuff. Digital is like, this is what it is. But we have plugins with oversampling and stuff like that now. So I don't think anyone can listen to a record anymore and be like, oh, that's in the box or that's out of the box. I think the engineer who's working on the record feels different. It feels different when I'm running stems through an analog process. I feel different about those stems. Yeah. I don't think the artist or anybody else will ever feel different about those stems. But it's it's more for me, or I'm trying to get this picture out the way. But almost everybody, every time I go to a studio that has a big console, no one's using the console. It's holding up. It's holding up the laptops.
Right.
With FL on the laptop. Right. So do you do you see yourself going to New York? Do you want to work on like the big format consoles in New York? Is that like something you see you and OT doing?
I don't. So right before he signed, he had asked me if I wanted to like go on tour with him or go on a road with him or whatever, and that wasn't something I was all the way down for. I don't see myself like traveling and recording on like buses and shit like that. But as far as like traveling to other studios to mix or track or whatever, maybe. But I'm so comfortable in my room in terms of knowing how my room reacts to sounds that to get my mixes to translate the way they need to, like it would just be so much easier there.
He needs to stay home.
Right. So.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
All right.
Man, thank you guys for coming out tonight. I thought it was literally going to be like 2 people. So thank y'all very much.
Much love.
And C4, so proud of you, man.
Man,
Good
thank
work.
you, bro.
You killed it.
Yes, sir.
I wish we had theme music to go out to.
Next time.
Chris, get us some theme music. This is awkward. There you go. There you go. If you guys haven't seen, anyone here that hasn't seen yet, or any of the is Yellow and Red open right now? Yellow's open? Yeah, if anybody hasn't seen the new rooms that we put in, you can go check out Yellow. If you want to see in the studios. Good job, man.
Thanks, bro.
How long did we go for?
A long time ago, yes.
You too, bro.
My name's B-Val, by the way.
Cool,